ERA Global is the place, is the destination. If you're looking to distribute your product, if you're trying to find a way to scale and get global impact and get global reach for your product, you have to be here. This event can change your life. So don't miss it. Make sure you come here. And guys, come to the show. Don't miss it. This is the place to be. Okay, guys, welcome back to the Global Launch Summit here for ERA Global. I'm joined by Dave Tiberia.
What's happening?
Very good old friend of mine who is also now the vice president of performance marketing and analytics at Weber Blackstone.
Guilty.
So, interesting story. So Dave and I spent many years together working together on the agency side. He's now switched over and gone to the brand side of it, which I'm sure is a new perspective.
It is.
But along the way, we helped Blackstone grow from really a ground-up startup using direct response tactics, ultimately to becoming an established brand. And now with the merger with Weber, taking some of that philosophy and some of that knowledge across to the other side of it, and to see how you build high brand loyalty through content engagement. So Dave, let's go back and talk about, at stage one, where were we with Blackstone when we started this journey?
It was like, we have this thing, and we think people might like it, and we're going to try and sell a few of them at retail. So, let's put some support behind it and see if we can drive some measurable sales.
Right.
It was quite frankly that simple, right?
Yeah, I think we started with 3 units, right? We had a small griddle, we had a mid-sized griddle, and then we had a 36-inch griddle.
Yep.
And lo and behold, I believe they like the 36 the best.
Yeah, the 36 is the top seller usually. And it's, what we saw in that first test, if we going way back in time, is that when we ran support with it, we saw immediate measurable uplift in retail across the board. So at that point in time, everyone knew we were on to something. And then we're off to the races, helping introduce not just a new product, but actually a new way of cooking to the marketplace.
Innovation has always led really well in direct consumer markets, and what used to be called direct response or infomercials back in the day. But we quickly pivoted from the long form and really got into looking at how to manage urgency and how to drive urgency around product sales. That was a big shift for the brand. Pretty much after the first year of establishing that it had value, the next move was, can you create layers of value and start to build loyalty while creating urgency of sales?
Yeah, and on top of that too, we really started looking immediately at, when you make this move, what happens in the marketplace, right? So there was obviously this component of, we have to learn if people want the product, but then we also had to be able to quantify that and to measure it and to understand when we do said thing, does it have an effect? And, as you know, the entire marketing strategy behind the company, especially on the paid marketing side, has been heavily driven by the insights that we would pull from just doing smart things, like looking at what actually happened after you ran it, And again, nothing incredibly complicated. We've done some advanced things, but it wasn't necessary sometimes just to be able to read the tea leaves.
Yeah, data's good, but if you don't read it, what's the damn point, right? If you're not taking actionable steps behind it. And I think what was interesting about the journey with Blackstone and the history there is it wasn't just a performance-based strategy. It was performance-based strategy with underlying content layers, and then measuring how the content engagement led to controlled ad spend over time, right? And I think you hit on it before. It's one, how important it is to set yourself up to be able to read those numbers in the first place.
It's very important, right? Because it's really the foundation of marketing in general. Somewhere along the line, marketing got disconnected from outcomes, right? Are there outcomes? Do people measure things? Of course they do. But they measure things like impressions. They measure things like, the number of likes. They measure things like the number of views. And while these are great things to know, and it's awesome to understand if people are looking at what you have and whether they're actually watching it, what's really tough is that doesn't draw a straight line from what you've done to what anyone on the board of directors or in the C-suite wants to know, which is how did it affect sales?
Right.
And I think it's a danger to marketing teams across the entire country for brands all over the place of any size. When you get disconnected, when what you do gets disconnected from real outcomes, people stop believing in what you do.
Right.
And it's a real risk. It's a real risk for creative leaders. It's a real risk for brand leaders, for marketing leaders, that what you do becomes considered either, one, unnecessary, right, which is a worst case scenario, but at the least, just disconnected from what the business goals that they're trying, that the business goals that the company is trying to achieve, which is what leads to reduced investment, right, in the practice as a whole, and what ultimately will damage brands. Because, as we know from experience, when you start to lose confidence and people start to pull back on that investment in marketing, it usually damages sales.
Yeah, if you make yourself disposable because you can't validate the connection, so measurement is important, but the right measurement is even more important. I think
Yeah, for sure.
being on and you have a unique perspective, having sat on the agency side and sitting in-house in that side of it. And I think when you start to think about, a lot of agencies will come to the table and they're like, but look, our information we're giving you is great. Look, we bought this much media. You got this many impressions. It was fantastic. Your CPM was X or Y. But is it really driving back to the bottom line? I think what you have to ask yourself as a marketer, and especially like in these layers of it, if you think about it like direct to consumer, direct response marketers, if you're going, layer one, you're getting immediate measurement. You're worried about your ROAS. You're worried about your media efficiency ratios. You're worried about, but you're not fully looking at the whole program of how you're growing a brand. I think what was unique in our journey with Blackstone and others, is that we're looking, yes, at those front end metrics, but we're also heavily looking at the long tail metrics of how consumers are engaging and how you're building this like brand loyalty through content, right?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the differentiation between that top funnel play and how the top funnel play really, as it's driving top funnel direct sales, it's also driving retail, and also it's driving an ability for you to engage an customer and really build loyalty.
Yeah, one of the biggest pieces of the Blackstone play, because it is a new way to cook and not just a different, it's not, you actually have to learn how to cook on this thing, right? It's completely different from a grill. That education, right? And helping the customer understand why the product was great, and showing them all the amazing things that they can make, and showing them the flexibility that they can achieve that you couldn't get outdoor cooking prior to that on a traditional grill.
Okay.
It was a key driver of the growth of the brand as a whole and the adoption of the product. It's funny, we have so much runway left on the adoption of the product still to go. Like, it's like literally crazy, right? But for the people that have adopted it, it's because the content strategies have given them the confidence and it's driven desire to want to cook that way for their family. They want to have those moments. And so that's the funny thing, right? Like, we talk about performance, and we started talking about, like, we got straight into the numbers in this conversation, right?
Do it.
Right. But a second piece of that is that it's funny how the numbers actually lead to things that are brand centric, right? We've led to a brand centric play, which is we're talking about the feeling you get when you cook on the griddle. We're talking about the joy of spending time with your family. We're talking about the wonderful meals you can have together with your friends in the backyard. And so the numbers actually led to a content strategy that has lifted the brand, has driven adoption, and has been incredibly important, because ultimately when we have an initial take on the numbers because we've been digging into it, right? And what we're seeing is it's looking like, as we push the media lever and we get interest in the product, that the content layer comes underneath it and it supports the messaging of the media by allowing people to have a place to go and connect with the brand a second time. And that second time is, like you said, it looks like it's driving adoption, but it also looks like it's driving loyalty. And, it obviously, I'll be quite frank with you, additional product sales as add-on items to the griddle itself.
So, and the short answer, the even shorter answer then, content loyalty leads to lifetime value and additional product sale.
It does, because people want to love and enjoy and engage with the brands of the products that engage with the brands of the products that they buy, right? If you're buying a product, you're incorporating it into your lifestyle, right? It's something that you're going to do. So having that place to connect with content and put the two together, it's incredibly powerful.
I think is like, well, this is a unique scenario, Dave. We had a griddle, we had a disruptor, right, in space, and you had food, and you can't do this across the board. You can't do this everywhere, can you? This playbook doesn't just work, does it?
I mean, it kind of does. Not it does. I mean, I guess if you're selling socks, maybe, but I mean, quite frankly, I could think of some ways.
Exactly. Look, it's, I think the revelation for Bluewater comes from a long history of direct to consumer and driving performance-based sales and everything with a measurement and knowing what your return was going to be walking in as soon as you tested, and then being able to build programs that got scale that way. But I think when we look at something like this that grew so exponentially, where you're not talking about 100 times, you're talking about thousands of times growth, consistently, ultimately leading to this merger between Blackstone and Weber at some point, making it perhaps the largest outdoor cooking brand, maybe.
Somewhat, some people might say that.
Could be.
Maybe. But I mean, sorry. Now I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking. I was joking about socks, but when you look at Bombas, right?
Yeah.
And you look at what they did, right? They created a lifestyle around a sock, and they did that by showing that they were investing in the community around them as you purchase socks. It was that give one get one, or buy one give one strategy that emerged, and the reason why that worked is because you did give people a way to become invested in the brand they're wearing, even though it was just socks.
Have to have a reason to believe brand.
Yeah.
And I think for Blackstone, in that particular journey that was going on there, the reason to believe in the brand was an experience, it was a lifestyle, and it was a culture. If you can get the consumer to hang that brand on them like it is part of their personal identity,
right?
If you can get to that point, then you're in a different relationship with the consumer because they're brand advocates on all kinds of layers for you, right?
And here's the thing, though, is that if all you do is run an ad, right, and drive the sale, and then say, we're great, without that content layer, you've given the customer nothing else to hang. Like you're saying, if you want them to wear it, right, you have to give them something to wear.
Yeah, there's no more meat.
No,
unintended. Yeah, literally. If you hit the top and great, yes, and there's plenty of brands and plenty of products that can go out there that are transactional in nature, and fantastic, be transactional in nature. It's okay to be transactional in nature. But if you really want to build something long term, you want to be looking at that inflection point between top funnel sales and content engagement. And if you're finding that inflection point, the value of your long term sales and the value of the company that you're building and the sales funnels that you're building are going to be far greater if they're engaging with the content effectively, because you're going to be able to theoretically, or not theoretically, actually, you're going to be able to flatten ad spend while content engagement grows.
And this is why content is actually an important part of a performance strategy, is because without that content, like I said, you've given your customer nothing else to bite into. You've actually walked them away from their ability to join your brand and to become a brand advocate and to join in and be a part of the story that you're telling. So, I mean, that's why investment in content over time is a valuable investment. Now, I think we have to do a better job of figuring out ways to measure it and tie it back, right? Like that's my job, it's your job, it's our job. To figure that out and to have that story ready so that it's believable and that it's real.
Yes, real. So the journey, I think, here is like we're the insight to be able to see long tails journeys of brands and how people are engaging with content over time and how that's affected in your ad spend models, especially on seasonal products where you can really spike out and see where the opportunity is. I think there's a lot of learning and insight for the folks that are going to see this piece from the global loss.
Yep.
And that insight is, I think, without giving away the secret sauce, because we can't give away the secret sauce. We can tell you a little bit.
Otherwise, it'd just be sauce.
Right. Otherwise, it's just be sauce. Damn you, Ragu. So without giving away the secret sauce, like, what are like the components? What are the things that make it work? What are the things you got to do, like the steps of it?
To do what?
To drive that brand loyalty while driving performance the same.
Yeah, I think I know from experience that you have to lay that foundation, right? And your foundation has to be, you have to have a foundation of media and awareness, and you do still have to do those things. And it is becoming more difficult as audiences fragment out and they engage with more media platforms than they used to. That big, easy, right? Bullhorn you spill the grab and just talk to everyone at once. It's far more difficult now. We all know this. But once that's there, you have to consider what about my product, right? What about my brand is resonating with customers, and what do I need to give them more of to engage? And to your point, yes, it maybe looks a little easy on the outside. Well, of course, you help people cook on you cook on a flat top griddle, right? Cool. But that there's so many things across every product line, every category that people are looking to consume more of. They want to know, they want to have a personality. And by talking to them, by creating personality behind that, you're actually building a resource for the brand too, because in the long time, what you've actually created is a dedicated communication channel with your most loyal fans.
Like you're building community.
You are. And that's what I was going to say and what those communities do is they lead to word of mouth, right? It leads to people telling to other people and talking to other people that are in the know, right? They're a part of that group, talk about the product, and that it's synergistic, right? Because one conversation leads to another conversation, leads to a Facebook group, leads to a post, and it leads to a share, it leads to a backyard moment, it leads to all these things, it leads to a purchase. And so, like when you say like what are the building blocks, like in the grand scheme of things, they're not all that complicated. You have to lay a awareness foundation, then you have to create content that matters to people. And as you grow and as you become bigger, the cool thing is you can get wider with this, right? Like we can start talking about broadcast television, right? We can start talking about extended longer format shows. People only think about bite-sized things. You have more to invest in the program. But the point is it doesn't matter if it's 30 minutes or 10 minutes or a short on YouTube or on TikTok, is it has to talk to that brand. It has to talk to your customer and help them engage with your product in a meaningful way.
Has to be. I think the authenticity is a big thing that gets lost. People start saying, well, we're just going to throw a bunch of stuff on, throw a bunch of content. It's about the amount of content. It's not.
No, you have to add value.
You have to have a consistent content strategy. Yes, you got to be able to drive content effectively, but you have to have a plan. But if it's not authentic and it's not real and it's not valid to that consumer or valid to that viewer, then it's just more noise. So you have to be careful in not creating noise.
You are dead on.
When you really want to create bonds of engagement between the brand and people.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously I'm not the one creating social media content or driving a strategy behind that, but there's tons of people. I'm just helping measure and understand connections on the analytics side, but I can tell you that the people on our team are so stinking passionate about the product, but also dead focused exactly on what you're talking about, which is adding value, being authentic, helping people enjoy the product in real life situations. Like they're maniacal about it, like to a level that it's hard for me to even explain to you here, right? I mean, you've seen it, but they really care. Like they really, really care. And that's the part, without that, it falls flat.
Without the real.
Yeah, without the real, it falls flat.
Like you have to be real. And here's the thing, the benefit that comes out of the crazy part is the benefit is what you wanted to get to in the first, which is more accessory sales, more unit sales, and more engagement, higher year-over-year sales, because you're building these tribes that are following it. Hell, like you go back 10 years ago at one of these conferences, and we're talking about tribal marketing. What Blackstone really is at the core of a tribal marketing strategy.
Yep.
Mixed with a performance strategy.
Yep.
So, talk a little bit about finding that balance between performance measurement and knowing, having just the feeling of what the brand needs to create.
Yeah. It's a delicate balance. I can tell you that. And you know that. It's a delicate balance. And how I'm approaching it is I'm looking at it. It's like wrapping it in tissue paper, right? Tissue paper, it's fragile. You poke it wrong, you get a hole, right? But it's all like translucent, it's light. You kind of see through it, right? And that's kind of how I'm like trying to think about measurement around these things, around the social media especially, which is like, how can you put something that doesn't obscure or make what's happening opaque from the customer, right? You don't want to hide and take away the beauty of kind of what's there, what the package is, but to wrap things around it in a way that's not obtrusive, right? So that you're not getting in the way of the strategy. You're not going to the social media team and say, no, you have to talk about this product. You have to tell them to go buy it at X retailer, right? Instead, you're providing like products that you want to focus on or feature in a particular period. Allow that to be worked into the conversation organically, and then figure out ways to put in like smart things. Like I don't need to emblazon a link across the bottom that you have to click on to drive back to the sale. But like, what if you just toss it in the description on half of the things, right? Can we leverage that to establish a baseline and extrapolate forward, either using machine learning or an AI model or something else on top of that? Like, there's a lot of options, but to your point, like I'm really focused on wrapping gently around the outside and not damaging, that beautiful package that is, what's happening with social media.
Listen, I think the authenticity, there's a place to sell and there's a place to inform, educate, and inspire.
Yeah.
And if you understand the spaces between,
because all I want to do is sell things.
Listen, we come from a background in direct response industry that when you start to think about it from a perspective, yes, performance matters. Selling more units matters. Getting more dollars in for your client matters. But if you can carry the story, if you can convince your clients, and if you can convince your partners and strategic partners and brands to invest in content over time without sacrificing still the need for performance, then you found the magic sauce in the middle of it. And I think that's the challenge that most of us face now, because with the democratization of content distribution, the challenges that we're facing currently from a standpoint of reaching a consumer, you have to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can't always ask for the sale. And I know it's counter to what we all, like most people think, you got to ask for the sale. You have to ask for the sale at the right time.
Yep.
And you have to get them to believe in the brand. I would throw this out there.
Which is why it all works together. And that's why I personally have an incredibly broad viewpoint of what performance marketing is, right? I see it as a very all-encompassing, journey from discovery to purchase, right? Because those touch points in the middle, like when we talked about, like you talk about like multi-touch attribution, you're like, well, we sent them an ad here, and then they clicked on this, display ad, and they saw this video, and then they bought, right? But what we forgot is that in between all of those points, there can be multiple touch points with the brand and the website, on a social media ad, with a friend, with a social media post, right? Like all these things.
Unless backyard.
Yeah.
Or quite frankly, at every single market that you go to, suddenly the Blackstone is there.
Yeah. And so when you narrow your view of performance down to just like a paid ad interaction, all you've done is just basically forget about the whole rest of the marketing mix and the parts of that puzzle that are what actually got someone to buy your product to begin with.
I think what became interesting about Blackstone in the end is it's not when you talk about your grill, you talk about your grill. When you talk about your smoker, you talk about your smoker. When you talk about your grill, you talk about Blackstone. It's a Blackstone. I don't care if it's another brand. It's still a Blackstone. It's like the build.
If it's another brand, it's not actually a Blackstone.
Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure we're all clear here. A brand that's not actually Blackstone, to be clear. However, you refer to, like, the consumer refers to that style of cooking is cooking on a Blackstone.
Yeah.
It's not griddling anymore.
Yeah. So something dangerous about that. But but to your point, it's a beautiful thing. And so much of it has to do with our partnership with you and your team, and then also all the great work. And that's the thing, is it's synergistic, right? It wasn't just like, oh, you did this and we did this, and like it was a cohesive effort across the entire, across the whole family of people that work on this thing.
It's a great point, I think, because we see it all the time on the agency side of it, getting, and it's called, probably shouldn't say this. This is probably the stuff that gets me in trouble. But when you have a client that's willing to work with you and be your strategic partner, then you're going to achieve better goals together. When you have transparency and understanding of the data together, and you're sharing the information together, and you're looking at the creative and you're having conversations together, and it's a collaboration with your client, that's when you reach success. And that's when brands grow and they become multi-billion-dollar brands. And we've been blessed. Like, you've been part of 5 multi-billion-dollar to grow 5 different multi-billion-dollar brands. That in itself is like, all right, we pat ourselves on the back. We're very proud of them. However, every single one of those was collab.
Yep.
Every single one of those had a CMO that was working and a team that was working hand in glove. And I think that gets missed, is that whether you're in-house or out-of-house, it's a team that drives these goals together.
It is. And that's because it changes. And it has to move. It's organic, right? It moves over time. You can't just do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results every time. You have to look, you have to read, you have to interpret, you have to move. Because, like, what's going to change now? AI is going to change these things.
Oh,
right?
changing it.
Like, it's going to change things. And that doesn't mean... Right. It doesn't mean, like, all of a sudden you abandon the strategy. We're not going to abandon the strategy, but we also know that now there's another layer, another component that's going to add complication to what's worked so great. And that means that we have to have and engage partners and people that we work with, because we're going to have to navigate that in real time. No one knows what it means.
Yeah, and you got to be able to...
I mean, we know what it means at a high level, but we know that what we do now isn't going to work 3 months from now, and that's not going to work 6 months from now, because it's going to just constantly, iteratively change.
Yeah, the speed of that side of it, and there's going to be new models that come out of it. You have to be willing to adapt to those new models as they're hitting, and you have to be forward-thinking. If you're not forward-thinking and trying things, like, we'll announce this here because it's not publicly out there, but we're making a whole series, a television series with Blackstone on Griddle Nation. It's about cooking on a griddle and all the recipes you can. It's not an advertising for Blackstone. It's a show that Blackstone happens to be part of. Like, that kind of connectivity, that kind of reach starts to take you to a different place where you're starting to build and broadening these audiences, finding audiences in different places. And brand integration in those types of shows is going to be more important than ever going forward.
Yeah, and it's because it's going to change product discovery is what's going to happen. It's going to change product discovery, right? Like, remember, like, at one point in time, people only discovered products, on, like, mass media. And then you had Google, right? You had search. And then it was like, now people search on Amazon. Remember, it was like, oh, Amazon's thing. And now they search in chat. Yeah. Well, in between that, people are searching on Instagram and TikTok, right? Like, they're doing product discovery there. But yes, now you're going to see a shift. You're already seeing a shift of people starting to do product discovery within AI. And they're asking AI, what's the best X? What kind of Y should I be looking for?
Content might matter there.
Content's going to matter a lot there because, okay, so again, I'm not saying you're not going to be able to buy it eventually, because these guys haven't figured out how to make money yet. But for now, the only way to be a part of an AI response is to have an organic content strategy that feeds that, right? And it can't just come from your website. It has to be broad, because it's, the AI is leaning towards those third-party resources as a way of being, more fair, right? More agnostic. So you have to have that content strategy so that you're giving the system something to consume and then building authority for the brand for customers to find you.
So as we sit here at the Global Launch Summit for ERA, where's the next challenge? Like, how do you start to take the product even more globally? Of course, the Weber Blackstone Weber helps.
It does.
That situation and gives you some reach in there, but
it might have something to do with it.
You have to tell the story differently in different countries. How's the thinking starting to develop, and how does an organization like this help and giving you scope and thinking in that space.
Yeah, I think an organization like this just helps remind everyone that the global consideration matters so much, right? It used to be just, it wasn't that long ago. You're like, oh, we'll launch it in the U.S.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll do some international stuff eventually, right? As these tools are going to allow you to be able to create localization at scale.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
And I want to repeat that so those of you that didn't hear. AI-enabled content will allow you to create localization at scale.
Yeah.
Meaning language, localisms, accents.
Yeah.
That's just the top layer of it.
Yeah.
Like theme types.
Yep. It's getting there.
All available.
Yeah, it's getting there. And, that means that organizations like this are going to help condense the earth to some degree, right? Because you're looking at it going like, before it was just US, and it was like North America now, right? And it was like, well, we can do North America and EMEA, right? Now we're starting to be able to branch out. They can look at it more holistically.
Yeah.
It's going to help brands. It will help brands be able to jump. It will help brands be able to jump from one continent to another much faster, right? Because, the organization and the size and scale of staff and people that is required to really take a brand globally, it's high, right? The cost of people is astronomical. As we can find, as organizations like this, where we can bring people together and you start to find ways to make that stuff happen more quickly, you're going to help be able to scale your brand a heck of a lot faster to places that, quite frankly, used to take an army of people to get you there.
That's why, that's what's great about this organization, about ERA Global, is because in one place, at this event in Las Vegas, there's 40 countries here being distribute product. 40 countries. And the next one in Mallorca, there'll be more countries, more capability for you to reach out to those organizations and groups that already have sophisticated systems in. Whereas you're an organization now that has infrastructure because of the merger.
Yeah.
There's many of them, many folks trying to get their product to market don't. So, one, David, thanks
for having me. Appreciate it.
For this nice conversation.
That's good.
And you guys out there, take this opportunity to click the stuff below, find out about ERA Global, find out about your next opportunity, come to the Global Launch Summit or to the global meetings in Mallorca coming up. And listen, I promise you this, if you take that chance, just come to the show and meet some of the people here. And when you do, you're going to learn a lot about how to protect and how to mitigate your risk if you're a product marketer, especially in the U.S. when you may be facing tariff concerns, you may be facing cost increases because of political pressure or not. You could be fine. You could be having no problems whatsoever.
No, wait.
Still come to the show.
Who are those people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, if the situation means now that you need to diversify how you're distributing product, how you're doing marketing, and you need to think global, this is the place to do it. This is ERA Global, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the next show.